And good afternoon, everyone. This is Dr. Meola with Get Healthy Hunterdon, and have we got a show for you. Many of you have always had questions about how you know what that little inkling you had about that thought and all. And you always said, gee, I think it's an intuition, or I think it's I've got a second sense and all. But we've got somebody that's going to really get to the bottom of this. And this is Kathleen Covalt, who's her credentials are Doctor of Education and all. And she's from Pure Energy, and she's going to be talking about this subject and kind of laying out the groundworks of interesting topics that we need to cover and all. So, Kathleen, first of all, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you.
And why don't you tell us a little bit about what this Doctorate of Education means?
Sure. Well, a doctorate of education is like a EDD. It's like a PhD, except that you have to get it from a college of education. And there's only a few of those in the country. Well, and so those are the people who can say you're an EDD. Otherwise, other colleges give out PhDs. So I was so interested in education that I wanted to specifically get a degree in that.
Interesting. So you've got the PhDs of science and philosophy and everything else like this, but you actually went and sought out the doctorate in education, which is very, very specific.
Yeah.
And then you went even further from what we were talking off air about that. So why don't you tell us, our radio audience, a little bit about that?
Okay. Well, my master's is in counseling. And when I went to, that was when I was younger, and I got my master's in counseling.
And not that long ago either. So.
Yeah. And I realized that I had an internship and I had clients, and I realized that I had been very empathic when I was younger. I was very attuned to other people's energies, their emotions. But when I had clients right in front of me, I realized I knew specific things about them. Like, they had a little block or a little trouble in their life. I kind of knew when they were younger, what they went through that kind of grew into that block later in life. And so I realized that I didn't want to go the traditional counseling path. So when I graduated, I started studying metaphysics, different kinds of spiritual disciplines. I was really trying to understand what is the nature of human beings. I was having experiences, psychic, intuitive experiences, and then I could do healing, energy healing and things. And I realized that there's more to the human being than the traditional culture gives credit for. So I started to try to find out, is there research on all this? And eventually I did go back for my doctorate, as we're saying, in education, because I learned that I loved to teach. And I was weaving together all these various pieces of information from different spiritual disciplines, different metaphysical types of thinking, but academics too. And so that's what I love to do. So Pure Energy is just my little business, and I go around, I do presentations, I give workshops and lectures so that I can help people understand that we're really way more than maybe we give ourselves credit for.
Interesting. So now, are there specific schools out there in the country or in the world that have that kind of a curriculum in as far as metaphysics and intuition, or was this something that you had to kind of piecemeal together from classes that kind of dabbled in it a little bit on the sides, or not mainstream, I would suppose, and all?
Well, again, I studied a lot of one person was Dolores Krieger, who was a New York University professor, and I studied what was called therapeutic touch. She developed something with the energy healing. But when I wanted to go back for my doctorate, I went to Northern Illinois University, which is one of the only schools in the whole country that had a specialty in transpersonal psychology. And that transpersonal psychology, that's like a spiritual psychology. So that again, wanting to bring the most academic resources that are out there to the study of something that's more spiritual, but also has to do with your psychological and emotional state as well. So that program was fantastic for me.
Right. One of the interesting things with talking with you at the at the event that we had been at, and then off air when we were getting ourselves all ready for this and all, was your knowledge and your thirst for finding science behind the topics that you do and stuff, which is amazing because so often people get the wrong idea about intuitives and things like that. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that scientific research that you've been exploring and, finding out about to help support, the things that you do?
Yes, excellent. So when I had left with my master's degree in counseling, I really wanted to see, I'm very intuitive. What does that mean? Who else is out there that's exploring that topic? And so I found this fantastic book. It was called Mind Reach, and it was written by Russell Targ and Hal Puthoff. And what they did was back in the 1970s and 1980s, they, at the Stanford Research Institute, they started studying psychic phenomena because they were training psychic spies. The United States government had found out that there were Russians that were doing this psychic research and psychic spying, and they didn't want to be behind them. So they started studying psychic ability out there in California in the 70s and 80s. And they would, for instance, I'll give a little example. They would have a person go to like a park, and when the person, and then they had a person in a room far, far away, and kind of called a Faraday cage, like a place where you couldn't have different electromagnetic energies couldn't get out or in. And so the person in the room would calm themselves down and start drawing and talking about where the other person who was miles away was. And when that person came back and they looked at that picture and they were like, that's exactly where I was. I can see the slide and the merry-go-round and, you drew this. It was perfect. And so then they found out that they could give them coordinates like latitude and longitude and say, what's going on there? And the person again could start drawing and describing what was going on halfway around the world. And then they even they just gave them a number. Okay, now we're looking at this, because they thought, well, if you know latitude and longitude, you might know that it's in Alaska or something like that. And you might say it's cold or something. So they just gave them a number. What's going on there? And so they kept refining it down to give the least amount of information. And sure enough, these people could describe what was going on. What they found out was that this psychic sense, this awareness, there's something about our consciousness that is not limited by time or space, so that you can go in the future, you can go in the past, you can go anywhere on the globe. There was even people who went to the moon to try to see what was going on up there. So they found out that we, as human beings, have somehow attached to us, who we are, this aspect of consciousness that is non-local, that isn't hampered by our physical body. And these are the things that really interest me and that I've been exploring now ever since, I learned about that in the 1980s.
Right. That's so interesting and stuff where, we as a society and stuff are so limited in as far as what we readily accept or don't accept. So belief systems versus, reality type of thing, where who's to say that you can't transcend, previous life, which some people do, or go into the future to find out, things that are going on. We had, so many cases, Edgar Casey down in Virginia and stuff. And we had other people that were able to go, before, after, or the present and stuff, and do things. So yes. This is very interesting. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a little commercial break, and we'll be right back with more intuitiveness. And we are back at Get Healthy Hunterdon, and this is Dr. Meola from Nutrimos of Flemington. When your health is at hand and concern, Nutrimos has the answers. So we've got an incredible show for everybody and stuff, and we're right back here with Kathleen Covalt, with her husband Wes, who's sitting next to her and stuff and encouraging her very nicely and all. She's with Pure Energy, and we were talking about intuitive guidance and all. And many of you are like, well, how can I actually, find out about this? And are there any kind of classes or things? So let's go to the source and find out. Kathleen.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I teach in the area. I teach at Warren County Community College and Northampton Community College, and at little shops. Like I'm teaching coming up at a little gift shop up in Washington, New Jersey, and I teach at hospitals. And I love to, what I like to do is weave together the academics, the research with this more metaphysical. And one of my upcoming classes is how to find your inner peace. And I love this topic because it's kind of talking about also, like, if you wanted to be intuitive, how would you do that? But just for your body, especially during this kind of holiday time, how to calm down. And so, again, weaving together the academics. In education, there's a theory called the theory of multiple intelligences. It was devised by Howard Gardner, who's a Harvard University professor. And I was teaching it in my education and psychology classes. And I realized it was perfect to weave that into helping people calm down, because I was also teaching meditation classes. And I realized not everybody can sit still and close their eyes and meditate. And I realized some people are more visual. And for the people who are more visual, you might have a beautiful picture. It might be a spiritual picture. And you could imagine that you're looking at that picture and you sort of bring it into your heart. And as it's in your heart, you feel the spiritual energy that that picture is emitting. You feel maybe the love if it's a being. You feel the love and peace that that being is radiating. And as you hold that, you let that flow through your body, and then maybe even breathe it out and bless everyone around you. And from research standings, there's something called mirror neurons, and they're just sort of finding out about this. And what they found is that if you have, let's say, pain, if somebody sticks you with a needle, there's different neurons in your brain go off. But it turns out that if you watch somebody undergoing some pain, those neurons will also go off. And so in the same way, a spiritual painting, so for people who are particularly visual, color means a lot to them. They remember people's faces, but maybe they don't remember their names.
Right.
For those types. If you see a picture and you really meditate on it, that means contemplate it. And like I said, kind of imagine that that image is coming into you. That can be a powerful way to feel that peace for those types of people. Then are people who are more verbal, who like to talk, who like to write. And I say to those people, writing helps process emotion, helps you get out whatever stress you might have. So get a journal and start writing about it. Don't let anybody see it. It's just your private thing. But write out, because that writing will help you get it out so that you can be more peaceful. Then there's people who are very body oriented, and there might be some people who can't really sit still very long. And so I always say to them, that's fine. What you want to do is focus on your body, and as you breathe in, tense up your body parts, all the muscles. Keep that breath in for a little bit, and then exhale and relax all your muscles, and do that a couple times. Tense your body, breathe in and exhale. And that's a neat technique. And I say, when you're focusing on your breath, it's actually more important to focus on the exhale. People are stressed and they're breathing shallow. So you want to focus on the exhale, so that blow it out with your mouth, so that there's a lot more room for the inhale to come in. So that's one of the classes I teach on, just helping people understand how they process information, and then give them all these different techniques that they can select from, so that when they do need it, they have a bunch of things that might work for them.
Very good. And like we were making reference before and stuff, how there's so many different variety of people. Some people say, oh, I feel your pain. Oh, I see what you're talking about. Oh, I hear what you're saying. So as you alluded to that and stuff, it's interesting how, there's so much intuitiveness that goes on. And there's another thing, extrasensory perception. They used to call it ESP, and that was a big thing that was going around and stuff. And people were, trying to capture that little bit. But I think, like you said, everybody's got something in them, and as far as the intuitiveness and all, it's just a matter of giving it some guidance and maybe some exercises to do to just make it awaken it, or to bring it out a little bit more and all.
Absolutely. And people will say, how do you develop your intuition? And I would say it's actually much simpler than you think. We're all intuitive, and it's kind of like a skill. Some people are really good when they play the piano. Some people are really good with a basketball. Some people are really good with this intuitive sense, but you can develop it. And basically, I know this is going to sound like, really? But for me, it's just a matter of switching my attention. I just turn my attention to, I want to know about that person. And that information is right there. It's kind of like, if you're a basketball player and you've got a foul shot and you get up to the line, you don't just chuck the ball. You kind of calm yourself down. You take a couple of deep breaths. You get in that state of mind. Your body knows what to do. When you know you're in that state, you take your shot. It's kind of the same thing. You get yourself with practice, and you'll know what it is with practice. You get yourself into that state of mind where you're going to expand your awareness beyond your physical senses, and you just look. You just look, and there it is. You can see things about the person. You can understand things that have gone on with them in the past, and it's just a matter of practicing, getting to know that internal state, and giving yourself, like I was saying about the calming down, you usually do have to get into like a calmer state. But like I said, when you're doing a foul shot or something, or you're taking that golf swing, you don't just go up to the ball and whack it. You get into that state that internally you are aligned, your energy's flowing, you're just in the present moment. And there's something about when you're in that present moment, you are expanded, you're joined to everything, and you're not really going anywhere. Because we're all interconnected, you just turn your attention to it. Like, how's your left foot? Well, you would just turn your attention, you would know. How is Mary Jane doing? You turn your attention there and you know. And I believe that we're at this unique time. I call it a paradigm shift, where things from the Eastern traditions, understanding about energies. I know you know about energies too. Those kind of understandings about energy and meditation has come now, and it's woven into our Western culture, our Western science, and it's finally weaving in, so that I think we're at the cusp of a paradigm shift where we can now explore in a research kind of an academic way these things that maybe we used to poo-poo before, psychic things, maybe even UFOs and extraterrestrial, things that we used to poo-poo before. Now we're opening up to really, I think the world is much larger, and there's something that we don't quite understand. We can apply research to explore it. And why don't we open up to it and not really mock it anymore or laugh anymore? Let's just consider it avenues of unexamined potential that we have the science, the techniques to explore. And I think we're just at that shift where we're going to find out amazing things in the near future.
Yeah. So often and stuff, when like using the example of the basketball player doing the foul shot and stuff, everybody thinks, they come up to the line and they focus. They become very, very laser narrow minded and they're just set on that one topic. But like you alluded to and stuff, you actually open yourself up. So now you're understanding the breathing pattern and how that's going to affect the muscles and how your eyes are going to be focusing differently and how the muscles in the wrist are going to be that quick snap that goes along with it. So it's not so much just the laser focus or just the, tunnel vision that you see, but you actually broaden your horizon and as far as the input that you're taking in. And as it appears, it's a very laser focused type of a technique or so that goes on.
Yes, and to use the sport analogy, just to continue that, I grew up with 4 brothers, 3 sisters. I was the oldest, and I saw in my family that these, especially, and my sisters were athletic too, but especially my brothers, they would go on a field and let's say football, they love football, and they would go on a field, and when they were in the zone, they would know not only where they were, but where the ball was going to be, where the other people on the field were running, where they were going to be. So when you're in that internal zone, you are not just aware of yourself, you are aware of everything going on around you. And so that's what's so cool about that is that when you get into that internal zone, you can know much more than your physical body. You can know and be before the ball even gets there. You just know that's going to happen. So I think sports players have been tuning into this kind of intuition in different ways.
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly. All the different performers that we can say, even a pianist or a violinist, cello, people playing and stuff, you see they're closing their eyes. We had a harpist at our wedding and stuff. And I told my wife, I said, it looks like she's getting into a trance and stuff. And, she would literally get into it when she was playing the music that was, resonating out of those strings. Those was incredible. And, she was there physically, but probably she was bringing in everything, all the harmonics and balance and, pressure on the strings and all that were needed with the little foot pedal to make everything work just the way that she had been trained and knew the harmonics were going to be working with and all.
So when you get to be so proficient after you've practiced so many times, you become one with it. So she was becoming one with the music, where a sports player would become one with the game. And when you do that, you expand your sense of self. You expand your sense of self, and you have access to all the beauty of the music, or the whole game is going on. You become one with all the other players and that team, because you become one with it. So you can go there. And for me as an intuitive, I can access information when I get in that state.
Right. So basically you have an orchestra that's got all these individuals, people and stuff, but when they start playing, they're into that zone with the conductor leading them and stuff, they become a symphony of vibration and stuff going on. Mm-hmm. And we know both in your practice and mine and stuff, how important harmonics and the resonating frequency goes with that and all. Mm-hmm. So it's just incredible the parallels that go with everything and all. Mm-hmm. Are there classes that you might teach that would allow an individual who say, they say, I knew that was going to happen, or, I was thinking about that the other day, or deja vu, I've been there before, that you would have available to the general public, our radio audience here, to take a look at and all. We've got, the holidays coming up, and it would be a great, experience for somebody to take a course, whether it's a workshop or whether it's a weekend or whether it's a, ongoing kind of a course that they could do.
Right. Well, I do have a course that I say.
How convenient. How about, tell us about that.
It's called Strengthen Your Intuition for Everyday Use. And I do have it scheduled now in March at Northampton Community College in Monroe. But what I do is and I'm sure we'll give out my website later, or, you can contact me, and I can, if you get a group of about 5 people or so, I travel. Usually my husband comes with me.
Okay.
Who's sitting here. And I can travel to your place. So I travel around to smaller groups. If they're interested in something like that, they can contact me. And again, I like about 5 people in a group. And if they can coordinate that, then I can come and teach any of the classes that I teach at the colleges.
Interesting.
And stuff. Yeah.
Okay. And it would be a couple hours, a day,
about
a weekend?
2 hours. That would be about a 2-hour thing. I have longer ones, but a lot of times I can go in 2 hours and do something like that.
Okay. Oh, that's interesting then. So the radio audience will be interested in finding out a little bit more. So we can either give the website or contact information now as well as later on, since they're thinking about it.
Okay. Let me get this here. The website is pureenergylady.wixsite, which is spelled WIXSITE.com, but then you have to put the /presentations. So I'll say that again. pureenergylady.wixsite.com/presentations. And I can give out my email address, and then if they want to contact me directly. And that is, pureenergy@ptd.net.
Okay, very good. And that's a / instead of the backward slash.
Yes.
And also, Otherwise, people get confused, and me being very computer illiterate and stuff, I need to know that.
Yeah.
So that's interesting, though. So what other kind of classes do you offer then?
Well, I've got a new one that I'm very excited about. And that is called The Rainbow Body, Humanity's Continuing Evolution. And I love this class. It's actually one of the most important classes I think I've ever developed. And it's based on research of different people who have attained the rainbow body, and how I think that is pointing to humanity's literally physical evolution into a higher state of being. So would you like me to go into this now?
Tell us a little bit about that. And as far as like maybe explain what the rainbow persona is, and then what the class would do, and as far as getting the person to that level or being attuned to it.
Okay. So there was a recent book that is excellent if anybody's interested in this, and it's written by a Father Tiso, Tiso, and it's called Rainbow Body and Resurrection. And what the rainbow body is, there's a teaching within Tibetan Buddhism. It's not all of Tibetan Buddhists believe this or understand this. It's sort of like a subsection within the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. And it teaches that if you go through certain practices throughout your life, and you can literally raise the vibration of your body, that a lot of metaphysical people talk about, but they've been doing this like actively for a long time, and you get to that point where you're just so pure in spirit. And I believe nutrition has something to do with it, what they're eating and what they're thinking about. And like I said, they have a strict meditative practice, many different techniques that they use. Towards the end of their life, and some people can do it sooner, but traditionally, towards the end of their life, they are able to, and it's sort of an alchemical process where you literally, and I explain this again from science, the physicist David Bohm said that matter is frozen light. And what these folks are doing they're literally, and if you understand Eastern tradition, there's things like chakras and there's energy vortexes in our bodies that spin. But without going into all that, you're heightening the vibration of literally the atomic structure in your body, and it's literally transforming into light. And when that happens, the physical body will dissolve, and there will be a rebirth into a luminous light body. And sometimes it's seen in rainbow colors, and sometimes just in this glorious golden light. So Father Tiso had heard that in 1998 in Tibet, there was a Tibetan monk, a very esteemed teacher, who had died and who had literally turned his body at his death into light. And he went and he researched, and he talked to 2 monks who witnessed it, and then the whole monastery and the whole community who witnessed other things. So at the time of this monk, his name was Khenpo A Cho, or Khenpo A Chow. I really don't know how to pronounce it. And At the time of his death, he was 81 years old. He wasn't really frail or anything, but he died, and these two monks were with him, and they noticed immediately that he had wrinkles on his skin, and it started to clear up, and his skin started to turn pink, like younger, and smooth out. And then it started to radiate a light. It became luminous. And these monks knew, they had known about this teaching and knew that their teacher was working towards this, but they didn't know what to do after he died. And so they sent word to another local monastery, and that teacher said, cover the body. Do not touch it. Do not interrupt the flow. And after 7 to 8 days, you can take off the covering and you will see what has happened. So during that 7 days, they could see that the physical body was shrinking in size. And they saw rainbows over the monastery, sometimes straight, not just like an arc, straight, different color light in the sky. They heard music. They didn't know where it was coming from. There was a light, petally rain that might come down. There were different signs, and some of the monks' students would have visions of him. And one actually felt the monk as the teacher coming and tugging their sleeve and say, pay attention, be attentive, meditate well. And so there were all these signs. And after the 7 days, when the two monks took off the cloak, there was no body left, nothing. And so it's a great kind of information for us in the West to know that this is what people in this group of Tibetans had been saying, that their teachers had attained this body, this luminous body. But now we had a little bit more research, at least, talking to the people, the eyewitnesses. And so I teach that this is potentially very similar to people. I grew up Catholic, and so very similar to maybe what Jesus did. Maybe Jesus learned some of these techniques, and maybe at the time of Jesus's death, he also was able to transform his body into the resurrected body, which is, I believe, a body of light. And actually, in one of the Bible, I think it's Matthew, Mary Magdalene goes to the cave where Jesus was born, the tomb, and when she finds that he's not there, a little later, Jesus is there, and she doesn't recognize him. She thinks he's the gardener or something. But then, he says, Mary, and she says, oh, teacher, it's really you. And he says, but don't touch me. Don't touch me. I have not gone to my Father. I have not ascended to my Father. And I believe that was like 3 days after, he had died. And I believe that kind of correlates with this idea of the body is literally undergoing some kind of physical transformation, and it takes a couple of days to transform it into light. Because one of the things Father Tizzo found out, that if some of these teachers in the Tibetan Buddhist world, if they were touched in certain ways, if while the body was undergoing this process, the body might stop and just remain a shrunken body and not maybe undergo the whole process. So there's a lot to say about that, but that's the basic idea that I'd like to get to people, that I believe we can evolve to these more luminous bodies, kind of like Jesus taught, follow me, I am, that we can become spiritual. And when we're in that spiritual realm, we can lower the vibration once in a while and come back to this earth plane, but that there's more to do on that realm. It really is a real realm, that it's just a different vibration, a higher vibration of body. And I believe we can all go towards that end and experience things. Our soul can experience things that we can't experience here on the physical plane.
Yeah, very interesting, because, we kind of look at, in as far as the way the body communicates and stuff, cell to cell and stuff. Now the latest theory is it's a light synapse instead of a chemical or an electrical type of thing. So it's
really?
light. And so there's a lot more studies going into it. We use a lot of low-level light or laser in our office and stuff. So the FDA has allowed us to do a couple things with it. So it reduces pain, reduces inflammation, but at the cellular level, helps stimulate the mitochondria, which is the powerhouse of the cell. So you need to have energy to be able to do any kind of healing and all. So there's a good sort of segue into how light energy is one of the purest.
Yes.
Now, for people who visually see things and stuff, that would be their way of doing it. The people that hear things harmonically and stuff, the resonating frequencies would be that and all. The people that feel it, it would be a vibrational type of a thing. So there's so many different pathways that, attaining more or a higher level that we as humans or society is currently stuck at and stuff, that these people, is it that they're just experiencing more of it, or they've allowed those barriers to be broken down to allow these things to manifest that are already there and all?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's fascinating.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things that go on with how we see things and all. So what we're going to do at this point, we're going to take a little commercial break and we'll be right back then. And we are back with Get Healthy Hunterdon, and this is Dr. Meola from Nutrimost of Flemington, Hunterdon County's most experienced in holistic health care. And when your health is involved, Hunterdon County Nutrimost of Flemington can help. So we were talking about intuitive guidance off air and stuff. And so we were saying, well, what should somebody expect from, say, a session and all? So why don't we talk about that for a few minutes and stuff? What is a typical, well, there's probably no typical, but what would be a beginning session like?
Okay. So how I see it is, imagine we're on a boat together and it's foggy and you want to get to this beautiful shoreline, but I have the binoculars. So I kind of go up and I'm looking and I can see far. I can see things, but you kind of understand. You've been there before. You know where you kind of want to go. So it's kind of like, I like to do it like as a team. And so if a person were to come to me and say, there's something bothering me, I can't quite figure it out, I say, okay, it's not a traditional counseling because I have my master's in counseling. I know it's just, I'm going to look and I'm going to see if I can get to the source of why these things are happening now. And if you understand the root of it, then dealing with it at that level, you won't have these repetitive patterns. So like some people might have, like, let's say a boyfriend, and then it's not going well, but then they get another boyfriend, a completely different person, but this pattern, the emotional pattern, still kind of continues. I might be able to get at the root of why that happens. So you would come to me, and I really would not want to know hardly anything right at the beginning. And so I would just say, do you have something, a topic you want to focus on, or a couple of topics you would focus on? And some people say yes, and some people say no. They just want to have the experience. And so I would, like I said, get into a centered state, like I said before, and look at that person. And I would start saying things that come up into my mind. I'm very visual myself, so I might get images. I might hear something. I'm very empathic with my heart, so I would feel emotions. I would feel sensations too. That's how I do it. And so I would start describing these things. Now, I had mentioned earlier about one of the things that they learned from remote viewing with Russell Targan, the whole government stuff back in the 70s and 80s, and I have found it to be very true. When you're in that intuitive mind, you want to describe things, you want to observe, but you don't really want to name something right away. When you're naming something, you're sort of in what's called like the left brain, and that can kind of block sometimes the intuitive, like you're trying to understand it in a very dissecting kind of way. That's
Right.
kind of not where you want to go. So I just kind of am very descriptive. I'll start describing things, and then I'll say to the person, does any of this make sense to you? Does this relate to what you wanted to talk about? sometimes I'll be talking about something. It's not what the person wanted to talk about, but I have a prayer that I do before every session that the highest and brightest and from kind of a divine aspect, what I can help this person with. And so sometimes it's not maybe what exactly they came in wanting to talk about, but maybe it's really even more important for them. And so then I start talking to the person after I've kind of laid it all out, and then they'll say, oh yeah. And then it kind of moves a little bit more into give and take, a conversation. Now, I also have what I call my Holy Well oracle cards. And I don't always use my oracle cards, but sometimes I do, and sometimes people want me to because they're fun. They're not tarot. People might understand.
I was going to say, how is this different than from a regular tarot card?
Tarot cards are very specific, and they come from a long time ago. They're very ancient, and I believe they require a lot of study. There's a lot to them. You can't just really pick them up and just use them for fun. As a matter of fact, I would argue that you probably shouldn't, because they come with a lot of, like, let's say, past energy.
Okay.
So my cards, I actually created them myself, and there's 40 some odd cards, and I have little sayings on them, little helpful sayings, like, let's say, keep a journal or take a walk out in nature, things like that. Mm-hmm. And so I might lay out a couple cards for the person. I might ask the person, if they're with me, to pick a couple cards. And then based on what the cards say, now how I think this works is, I think we really are all connected, and there's something about synchronicity. The word synchronicity means a meaningful coincidence, and I believe it's kind of like all life is. But when you're in this flow of life, you have a lot of synchronicities, a lot of things that you don't realize how they're happening, but they just happen to present themselves to you, and they're meaningful and helpful. So I believe the cards work like that. They're like synchronicities, and you turn them over, and there's a little saying. And then I jump from that little saying to make it into a story. What's meaningful for this particular person? How can I relate this to that particular person? And we go into a story. And it's a really wonderful experience usually for people. I usually bring some tissues with me. Because I find a lot of people start crying because we get to such depth. They haven't touched that place in a while. And so I bring out the tissues and I say, yay, you're crying, because I'm so thrilled that we've gotten to something so important to you. And now that you know what it is, you can work on healing. And I might give them some techniques to heal it.
That's always good. Mm-hmm. So how would people get a hold of you again then?
Okay. Well, they can go to my website, which I can give again. And I also have a phone number that they can call. It's my cell phone, and that's 740-331-2412. And my email, pureenergy@ptd.net. And my website, again, pureenergylady.wixsite.com/presentations. I also have a Facebook page, and that's Pure Energy Lady. You can search for that on Facebook.
Very good. So with the last minute or two that we have for the show and stuff, any final thoughts you want to talk about?
I think this is a very powerful time we're at right now in our culture, in the world. I think we really are at a time where we can heal the old, and as a matter of fact, not even focus so much on the old, but what can we create? What new can we create? It seems like a very powerful time to create something new. And I think that when you connect with that inner essence of who you are, and you sort of ask the universe, how can I help this new creation? I think these synchronicities happen in your life, that you'll be led so that you can be the best you can be. And then you can kind of bless the world with who you are and help the world change to the best it can be.
Well put and stuff. And if more people would take that kind of attitude, we'd be in much better shape. Well, that was a very excellent show tonight that we had and stuff. This was Kathleen Covalt, who is a doctorate in education. She has a pure energy presentation and program that she does, and it has intuitive guidance with it and all. So for those of you that are interested, please feel free to give her a call or email her, and look for her connection on our Get Healthy Hunterdon website there and all. This is Dr. Meola. We're finished with our hour, so I'm going to turn it over to our next show. Everybody, please have a great week. Stay healthy and happy, and we will see everyone next week at Monday at 12 o'clock. Have a great week.